Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Off the Record. We've managed to wrangle the microphones back off Kristen and Eliza, and here we are. I'm very excited today because we are privileged to have one of the great wise souls of the church with us.
Oh, goodness.
Those of you who know the great Linda Staley would know what I'm talking about. And those of you who don't, I'm sure you will know soon enough in the interview. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you,
Great
Josh.
to have you with
Yes.
us. It's your journey in the church is as what I would call a pillar, not only of the church but of the community, is a lot of times is invisible to the other people because your efforts and your energies are not generally from the platform, but deep into someone's life. Would you say that?
Yes, definitely. And that's sort of like how I like it. I do not like being in the spotlight, so I enjoy being and in the back scenes, so to speak.
Yes, good, but not tonight.
No.
So let's start with who you are. Tell us a little bit about you're a Victorian.
I am from Melbourne originally.
Yes, very good. One of our great cities of Australia.
Yes, southern state.
And when did you tell us about when you got saved?
I got saved, I remember the date, 13th of April. How old was I? I was 25.
Wow.
So I'm 63 now, so a long time ago. Probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. But I was in a fairly broken state and just found the reality of Jesus, and which has just, to me, been the rock of my life, the bedrock of my life, and the reason why I do everything that I do today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so, just to give everyone a bit of a snapshot, you're an avid traveller.
Yes.
You've been doing many different things in your life. Do you want to just give us what's your other than Italy, of course, because you can't have my favourite place.
No,
but
no,
where are some of the great places that you've been to?
I think highlighted for me is Turkey. I love Turkey. I love the culture, love the food. The people are very warm, very hospitable. They'll just take you in. Yep. And feed you and look after you.
Fantastic.
And just incredible. But the most recent, I think, was Ethiopia, which was like a bit of an adventure. It was a hard travel, but really, really enjoyed the getting to know the civilization and the cradle of civilization and the history, the people. Yeah.
And have you found that your travelling abroad has, over many, many years, has, I guess, giving you a broader perspective of humanity and life and culture and how it influences individuals?
Definitely. I started, my first travel was as a young girl with my parents, and that was overseas for 3 months. And then when I was 16, they sent me to Japan for a year. I lived in Japan for a year. Yeah, so definitely living in a different culture, you grow, and I always say that travel is the best university that you could possibly have. And also because my life has been around travellers and hospitality because of our family business. Yep. So, just enjoyed people.
Now, let's dive a little bit deeper, Linda.
Okay.
Let me just say this is some of my perspectives of you, Linda.
Yes.
That you see people.
Yes.
And a lot of times you see what they don't want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that and I asked you this question earlier, that I'm imagining that when you bump into people on the street that they straight away reveal their heart to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's something that is not only, I guess, something that God's given you, that that openness to be trusted and to be a confidant, but also it's something that you've poured a lot of your energy into as well. Do you want to sort of unpack a little bit about what you do and how you your Christian vocation, I guess.
I think thinking about that, I love people, and I understand brokenness and what people go through, and I think when you have gone through brokenness yourself, then you can have a greater empathy for others. Yep. And that, like, to me, has been my life calling, is to be able to listen to people and be present to people when they talk, and to sometimes hear beyond the words of what they're even saying. I mean, for me personally, I do counselling, but I work with people using symbols and different things so that it gives them another language to be able to express themselves.
Yeah, very good.
So, yeah.
And I guess, in this season of isolation, what's it revealing that you see, that you're seeing? That
Well, to me, the pressure's on, and when the pressure's on, the cracks are revealed. And sometimes with pressure, people thrive and other people don't. So you have people that are really struggling at this present time, and you can tell because they're depressed, they've lost their motivation, they're angry, they're frustrated, and other people have just thrived.
Yeah.
So it just depends on, I suppose, the person.
Yeah. Because I challenge people regularly to use the time, if they're isolated and they've got a lot of time, to use it to learn something new and or to create something.
Yes.
Which for some people they receive well, and other people it's not within their capacity or their energy at that time to do it. Do you have any, I don't know, any tools or advice for people to, it's important they reach out to someone like yourself, or is it?
I think it's finding what's within the person that they can do, because everyone's so different. If someone's very low, then I'll say, what are you capable of doing? Are you able to get out and go for a walk? Are you able to, when you think of someone, give them a call? Yeah. So it's just in the very simple things. It's not, because sometimes you can give people a whole lot of tools and they go, I can't do that, and then they feel like they've failed again. Yeah. So I try and work with the what's within their reach. If they don't want to write in a journal, don't write in a journal. If they can't draw, don't draw. Yeah. If they can't walk, find something that you like doing that they would do. Something
that they can actually have a victory around.
Yes.
And then they can build something to build upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. And you and my wife Kristen are good friends.
We are.
Why is that? What are you guys?
Why are you asking
I don't know.
Me that?
I wonder. I wonder what you guys talk about.
We talk about
Kristen
you.
Just unload on all of my
Yes. No.
Yes, I can imagine. There's plenty.
Kristen and I started praying quite some time ago, and it was over a young woman, and we committed to really pray in this difficult situation, and from there we've just continued to pray, and to me it's one of my highlights of my week. And there's a group of us that get together, and because for me, I've always been involved in intercessory prayer in some way, shape or form. Yep. And that's what I mean by being behind the scenes. I like that behind the scenes, because I feel like you can accomplish a lot in prayer. Yeah. And especially with a group of like-minded people. And so Kristen and my relationship has been formed around that. And we've developed a lot of trust and understanding for each other through that. Yeah.
Do you? It's interesting, those relationships, that you grow in life. There's a lot of people out there probably listening, in our thousands of listeners to this and watchers,
right.
Who are probably asking, how do I get myself one of those people?
Yeah.
Have you found in life that, you're being present, how is there any advice you can give people, I guess, on how to engage in relationships in a manner that can be a foundation for strength going forward?
I've always, I found myself very isolated many years ago. And I remember reading this one line in a book, and it was, to have a friend, you've got to be a friend. And I really started thinking, well, how is it to be, there for somebody? And it's that sense of like being interested genuinely.
Yep.
I love stories.
Yeah.
So when someone tells me a story, I want to hear about their story because you can learn from them, like I can learn from your experience in Italy. If you tell me a story about Italy,
Yes.
I'm there. I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm a storyteller too. So it's like it's lovely to be, you know.
And I've noticed that, even through Kristen, I've been on a journey over the last 10 years in prayer myself and just reaching out to, I've got some great friends in a monastery in Perth who have, helped me discover centering prayer, which is basically praying the Psalms and those things. And I guess, through those conversations, Kristen highlighted to me, you've also been on a similar journey around prayer and centering and things that can, I guess that, I guess one of the things that I see is that we get a lot of the things, different types of prayer are so healthy. And I love it in Ephesians when it talks about praying with all types of prayer because naturally our prayer comes out of our need, which if it begins with ourselves, it sometimes we can just stay there. Whereas I'm loving the centering prayer because it begins with God.
Yeah.
And then through that, I guess there's health and healing. Would you like to?
Yeah, I think in prayer, I think one of my favourite ways to pray is just turning my heart towards heaven and just not even saying anything, but just it's like my heart's there, God. And I love to just sit in the presence and soak in His presence. For me, I think my greatest hunger is the presence of God. Yep. And so for me, when it's like if I don't get it, I crave it.
Yeah.
Absolutely crave it.
I'm picturing you like Daniel, in Babylon, where he'd open his window and he'd go, where's Jerusalem? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no concept, there's no discussion around what he said, but there's inference that he wanted to just give his attention to the direction of God.
Yeah.
And then just sit in His presence.
Yeah.
And it's a great.
There's a story in Kings, and it was when Solomon actually built the temple.
Yep.
And it was like, but there's nothing happening there. He had all the glory and all the gold and everything there, but the presence of the Lord wasn't there. And then Solomon brought the Ark of the Covenant back into the temple, but it's the presence of God, you know. So it was just this, that sense of like you've got to have that presence of God. Yeah.
It's an interesting one too, isn't it? Because that the more I do this relationship with God, the more I realise that it's not there's not strategic steps.
No.
It's just like any relationship where you just need to take a step towards Him.
Yeah.
And like you say, and just sit and observe.
Yeah.
I love the concept of sitting in His presence. To me, I sort of put it to the, sitting in front of a great piece of art or sitting in front of an amazing mountain or piece of nature. And the longer you sit there, the more you appreciate about what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when we approach God in only when we're in need, is we're not actually looking at God.
No. We're
just looking for an answer
instead
of for a relationship. So I like that concept. And I think we, there's the words that we use are, where a lot of us are going on a search for words because, so I might say, I just want to observe God, or you might say, I want to be in the presence of God. And someone else, finding those words that can enhance your relationship with God is key, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, definitely. It's an amazing journey to go on, and it's like, the more you seek Him, the more you find Him.
Yeah.
And it's like that sense of like, where are you, God? And I remember listening to someone the other day, and they said, maybe it's so dark because you're right underneath His wings. you know,
Great.
which was just really
Yeah.
a beautiful thing, you know, to think about, is that sometimes you don't sense the presence of God, but he's close.
Yeah. There's an amazing poem by St. John of the Cross called The Dark Night of the Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read that. I've got it on the wall in my office. And I can't understand this poem.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I love it.
Mm.
And it's this, it's this essence of, St. John of the Cross is alive in the time of the Reformation where Luther's, it's all blown up, and here he is over in Spain as this young Catholic, and he's trying to find God in the midst of all this chaos, in the midst of this darkness. And he says, in the darkest night of his soul, that's when he discovered the Lord. And I thought, I still can't grasp the power of or the insights, but I love appreciating the beauty of it.
Like he came right to the end of himself.
Yes.
And it's like, like when it's the darkest,
Yeah.
it's like I know I've had times when it's been dark,
Yeah.
the dark nights of the soul, and it's like, God, I'm just holding on to this thread.
Yeah.
And it's like, I always call it the rope of hope.
That's beautiful.
And I hang on, and it's just like, he never fails. He's always there. In those dark times, he's always there. Yeah.
And bizarrely, there's things and places and books and prayers and poems and different things that are sometimes a resting place for us, aren't they? Which is quite an interesting.
I know I've been listening to a guy. He was a priest, an Irish priest, and his name's John O'Donoghue, and just his work is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And he's a philosopher. And but it's just like when I read one of his poems the other day. I can't remember it offhand, but when I read it, it's just like my heart just went, that was just a beautiful place to rest. Yeah.
And I just, to me, the encouragement out of this, hopefully for everyone, is that finding that space. You know what I mean, or that, and sometimes it's not a physical space, it's a book, or it's a scripture, it's something that you just that you get to rest in. And but look, appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
It's been amazing to have a chat, and
thank you for
hopefully
having
everyone's
me.
blessed, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
See you later.
you.
See you, everyone.